Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my dream world. We just got through week 4 of Dancing with the Stars, season 34, Disney Night. So, I don't really have much to say for this intro. I think I'm just gonna hop right into it. But before I get into all of the dances and my thoughts on the night, this is just a reminder if you are new to this channel, I do not have ballroom experience, so if I don't get things right when it comes to technique or choreography, please feel free to correct me. I really don't mind. I love hearing from actual experts about what ballroom and Latin is really made up of. So definitely feel free to correct me kindly, please, in the comments if I get something wrong. And just know I'm doing this for fun. I'm observing as somebody who works in the entertainment industry and has seen a lot of dance but isn't an actual dancer myself. So yeah, and also just going into this, I'm going to be complaining a lot about the songs, most likely, and this is an issue I have with Disney Night in general, so it's not just me, like, trying to be negative or anything. This is a very positive channel, but, I also believe in speaking my mind, so if I don't like something, I'm going to be honest about it. But yeah, let's get into Disney Night. Overall, despite the dances being a little hit or miss for me, I enjoyed the night just fine, more so than TikTok night for the most part, at least for me. I did notice there were a lot of quick steps, and we had one jazz dance, which is, kind of in a different zone than the rest of the dances this episode were. But yeah, let's hop right into it. Basically, for these videos, I go through each couple overall, then I do some highlights, we talk about the elimination, and then the overall show, any tidbits I'd like to add in. So yes, our first couple this week was Dylan and Danny. I'm gonna be honest, I find him very overhyped by the show. Not so much by the fans, actually, but by the show. It was solid. That was a solid, perfectly fine dance. I just find myself watching Danielle, not him. It's not really him that particularly impresses me, and I don't find him to be doing a lot of the content. It's mostly her. And as a result, I've been finding him quite bland. Now, I don't necessarily think he should have gone home tonight, and he's definitely better at ballroom than he is at Latin. But again, I actually, and this is unpopular, but I was more impressed with his week 2 samba, because even though his technique wasn't as good, like his foxtrot and quickstep were objectively better, he actually did the samba content in that dance. And I was like, okay, Dylan, I see you, even if it wasn't technically correct and he was stiff. But, like, he actually did content there, and that's what I want to see from them here. Like, for the past 2 dances, it kind of feels like, yes, he's doing the steps, but he's not really, like, into the dance, and Danielle is doing all the impressive stuff. She's kind of just carrying this partnership for me, and I love Daniela, by the way, but she's had better partnerships, in my opinion. And it's kind of wild to me, and I'll get into this by the end, at the end, but I actually agreed with Carrie Ann in this circumstance. If you haven't seen my videos before, Carrie Ann is someone I either strongly agree with or strongly disagree with. There is absolutely no in-between. So I have a tough time with her sometimes. But this week, I mostly agreed with her. Derek and Bruno were the ones who actually ended up, in my opinion, overscoring Dylan. It was a 7 at most for me, considering how everybody else was scored. I feel like, Bruno, you might be simping, and Derek, this might be your bromance of the season. I don't know, but it does really feel like they are glazing him, because I'll get into this later, but I don't think he was better than Scott. But that's just me. He is improving, and he is better at ballroom, but I don't know, like, after next week, after one glaring weak link, which I will get into later, Dylan can go. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I mean, he seems like a perfectly sweet man. This is nothing like at him directly. It's just dancing wise, I haven't really been impressed by him except for week 2. But that's just me. Next, I have Danielle and Pasha. She has been in the first half of the night every single time, and that does make me kind of nervous because the scoring tends to be a little bit wonkier for the people that go in the beginning. We saw it with Jordan on week 1, and we saw it with Lauren last week. unfortunately. Rip my queen. I love you. Not actually Rip, by the way. But, like, oh, I wish she was still here. I'm sorry. I'm not over it. I am still at the kitchen. But back to Danielle and Pasha. I will say it was a little bit awkward in terms of footwork. And, like, some people were saying, mistake where? She made a mistake. Her timing was off, like, her footing was messy. The judges pointed it out, and they were correct in pointing it out. But it was very, very cute. And I will actually say I did prefer hers to Dylan, and there are two reasons why. I feel like she did more actual quick step content, and she performed. Like, Danielle, yes, she's an actress, so it makes sense that performance would come naturally to her. But like I said, during Dylan's dance, I was watching Daniela. During Danielle's dance, I was watching her, not Pasha. And that's how it should be. We're supposed to be watching the celeb. They're the ones who are supposed to shine. Obviously, the pro is going to be better technically, but the pros should be making the stars shine. And Daniela is usually very, very good at that. But, like, I think Pasha has done well with, you know, letting Danielle take the spotlight. And like I said, I was watching her, not him. But Bruno was right. I'm not going to be biased because I do love Danielle. It was mostly the timing with her footwork over anything else. So frankly, I don't think she was underscored because it wasn't quite 8 level for me, but it kind of peeved me that they were much nicer to Dylan than they were to her when they were pretty much on the same level. If not, Danielle was better because she actually did more content. It kind of depends on how you're scoring it, and I'll get into that later because since I'm not trained in ballroom, I can't say anything truly regarding the scores. But and we'll talk about this even more when I get to somebody else, but they do seem to judge women way harsher on this show, which is, you know, it's a pattern. But it's sad to me because, come on, like, I just felt like they were so much harder on her than they were to Dylan. But not gonna lie, I was a little bit worried for them when we got to elimination time, but she's safe, so I am happy with that. Okay, next we have Scott and Riley. I'm just so glad that Scott is getting more confident after last week because he did a great job. I did think they were a little overscored with that 8, but that's just my opinion. The Sharpay and Ryan theme worked very well for these two. The parallel matched up, and he is definitely improving. Like, he definitely has more movement quality and is much more confident with the actual dancing. And I'm gonna be honest, this is the first salsa I've actually liked this season. Upon rewatch, I actually didn't love Roberts, but we can get into that later. He did have a few awkward moments that were pointed out, especially with that, like, I don't remember what the move is called, but, like, when they were, you know, ducking under each other and turning and stuff, it didn't look good. It was towards the end of the dance. I was like, ooh, that was awkward. But yeah, his confidence has definitely helped with the improvement from what I can see. I do think he is very stiff, and I know he has scoliosis, so I get it, but it's the hip action, because even though this isn't a standard Latin dance, it is a Latin dance still, so we need to see those hips and all of that, and that's where I was kind of like, ooh, he's still quite stiff. I don't know how unpopular this is, but I think he was scored appropriately. There were issues with the scoring. This dance was not one of them. I fully agreed with the judges on this one, actually. So, you know, I would say this is my favorite dance from him, but with room to grow. His jazz was good too. Those two were good. But again, jazz and salsa are not amongst the standard dances that have more rules and that they're more strict about. So I'm hoping that he can continue this momentum with some of the more technical dances. Next, we have Alex and Val, and I mean, when I saw that she got the song that she did, I went into this knowing that she'd do well, but this was really good. Like, this is the first time I've really been like, okay, Alex, like, she's been solid so far, but this was like a yes for me. I loved that choreography. She executed it very well. She is definitely improving every week. She's been on an upward trajectory for me. I do think it's kind of ridiculous that she got 8s for that. Like, I agree with the 8 if it was me scoring, but if Dylan's getting 8s, that should have had 9s. Because I would say that this is amongst one of my favorites of this season so far. Alex has been getting lost in the shuffle, especially for the first 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks I was like, you know, I'm actually not super impressed with Alex. She's fine, but given that she's had experience and, you know, given her hype, I was kind of like, she's whatever to me. But this week and last week have bumped her up in my rankings for sure. I just think that for her now, I need a little bit more performance. Now that she's got the technique down and she's more confident and is like getting into the groove, she just needs to really like wow me now, and she can get those 10s. But she did a great job. I think she was my favorite dance of the night, actually. I'm not sure how unpopular that is, but there we go. And I do have to say, adding on to this is a side note, I did think Julianne's "I can be a villain too" comment was funny. I do love Julianne, but I don't care for her as a host because sometimes her delivery is awkward, but that line was funny when they had to cut to the commercials early. Oh, Miss Eliminated Hillary and Gleb are next. Of course, Gleb is complaining about being underscored in their package, but considering that she has ballroom experience, specifically Latin experience, I get why she was being scored harder, especially because Carrie-Anne was right. The musicality the week before was off. But for this night, once again, it was a perfectly clean dance, but it just didn't stand out to me either. I really don't want to sound like a hater, because I'm usually like, dang, if you're like saying stuff like that, you just really don't want to vibe with this person. But in all seriousness, I don't vibe with them. And I agreed with Derek that there were other dances that actually had more quick step content, aka Danielle's dance. I mean, please, again, I'm not ballroom trained, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw more recognizable quick step moves in other dances tonight. And for that matter, that's actually Gleb's fault, because he's the pro, so he's the one who should be putting that choreography in there. It's like last season when he got criticized for teaching Brooks the wrong hold, like tango and quick step have a different hold, and people were like, Gleb, you taught her the wrong hold, and they were like, yeah, that's kind of your fault, dude, you're the pro. And oh my gosh, this comment, I touched on it earlier, with Carrie-Anne saying like, oh yeah, we women have it harder, when she has time and time again been harsher on women and has gassed up mediocre men. This is where I have an issue with Carrie-Anne, because I'm like, consistency, my friend, consistency. Right message, I agree with her. Like, they do tend to be harder on the women on the show, which is annoying because the men can get away with doing a bunch of lifts in dances that involve lifts, by the way. Like, I'm not trying to hate too much, but it's like, come on, why are the men getting held to much, like, the women are held to much higher standards on this show? So, right message, but wrong messenger and wrong receiver, because, again, this woman is ballroom trained, so I don't really feel, that much sympathy when she's like, upset about those scores, because I'm like, we're still towards the top of the leaderboard, even though clearly, it's whatever. But yeah, I don't want to sound like too much of a hater, because genuinely, Hilaria is a great dancer, but considering that that's to be expected, I'm like, I need more from you. And when I say that, it's because last year, Chandler was the only one who was dance trained as far as I could tell. And she was consistently, I don't care what people say, she was consistently the best, and her scores reflected it. And the only one who really was near her level, not even near, but like who was consistently good, was Joey, in my opinion. Chandler consistently showed out with great choreography, great performance, great everything. And her scores reflected it. Unfortunately, her votes did not, but that's just the truth. Hilaria, not standing out to me, and she has even more experience than Chandler does. So that's why I really had trouble with her this season, and she got eliminated. Frankly, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. I did predict and I'll get into the elimination a little bit later in more depth, but I'm not surprised she stuck around for a few weeks. I predicted her scores will keep her in for a while, and I think that's what happened for the first 2 eliminations. But at this point, people were just sick of her, and a lot of the other celebs are catching up. So yeah, she got eliminated, and frankly, I'm not super surprised. And I'll get into that later. Let's move on to our next couple. All right, Andy and Emma. I can't complain about the love this man is getting, genuinely. He really is what this show is all about, so I'm not angry that he's still here. I personally am still at the kitchen and would have taken Lauren over him and Hilaria, mind you. He was definitely overscored last week, but I'm genuinely happy that he's still here all the same, because he just looks so excited to be here, and he's a lovable person. So I'm genuinely not, like, upset that he stayed. Like I said last week, though, he is the glaringly weakest dancing remaining, and I will say, though, I actually liked his dance this week. This is the first time I was like, oh, Andy, I actually really liked that dance, because he's so sweet and cute when he performs, but he's just very steppy and stompy. Like, he doesn't really go through with that footwork. He just kind of looks like he's blocked, like, kind of awkwardly stomping around, and he just doesn't execute as much content as everyone else. His arms and upper body actually looked fine to me. Like, they didn't stick out to me negatively, though obviously I don't have ballroom experience, so there were flaws with the technique, I'm sure, especially since Derek actually, like, had him work on a frame for a little bit when they were giving feedback, so clearly there was something wrong with his upper body. It's really his footwork that bothers me. He just looks like he's kind of plopping his feet around, and I'm just like, ugh. But yeah, they do look adorable. I love that they did a dance with a Ratatouille theme, since that hasn't been done before, and he's so sweet. I'm not, like, angry that he stayed, but, you know, we'll get into that a little bit later. All right, Robert and Whitney. Robert fans, trigger warning for you, because I'm about to go in on this man a little bit. I absolutely adore Robert, but frankly, his night one dance is the only one that's really stuck out to me. I didn't love that, like, his tango was good. I didn't love the salsa last week, and I didn't love this week's dance either. Frankly, it has been the choreography for me. And there is some stiffness with Robert's dancing, but he's able to execute the content. Same with Dylan, but, even more so. I like that tango content from Robert, as far as I could tell, was quite good. It was just that weird break in the dance that I didn't like. But yeah, he's quite good when he's given content and not gimmicks, despite a little bit of stiffness. So that does kind of surprise and disappoint me from Whitney, but I think since last season, she just wants those viral moments, and she wants the TikTok views, but I'm like, Whitney, you have Robert Irwin, and you're gonna get the views no matter what. Can you please give this man some content? Because I know you can do it, Queen. Whitney is a fantastic choreographer when she really locks in, but yeah, I've been disappointed with his choreography from Whitney's choreography, but I will say, like, it was cute that they did a Zootopia theme with him, but the biggest issue I had, though, wasn't even the choreography. It was that I hated that song for a cha-cha. It just did not work. It made the dance feel so slow and so awkward. Like, I really love Robert, like I said, but this dance was just not good. It really wasn't that good. It was actually one of my least favorites of the nights, which makes me sad because I love him. Whitney, once again, if this isn't your cue to step up the choreography and get better songs, because, the pros can kind of veto songs and stuff like that, this is it. Because, yes, they're still getting decent enough scores, but this week they weren't on the top of the leaderboard. There were people that scored higher than they did. So, yeah, this is kind of, I hope, your wake-up call. This is it. Yeah, like I said, sadly, one of my least favorites of the night. I know that this man is winning this season voting-wise. Like, he really, really is. Like, he's gonna have to drop the ball pretty badly to lose. Like, this is his show to lose. However, if he wins, I want him to really have earned it. Because right now, he's not having the best showings. Like, he started off with a bang with that jive. And now, like, the tango was also pretty good, but now he's kind of plateauing a little bit. Some people were saying, like, oh, they're spiraling. I don't think they're spiraling. I think he's plateauing and is not improving as fast as some other people are. And the judges do seem to agree, because I actually looked at his scores, and he's had the same score every single week except for week 1, assuming Carrie Ann was not there. Or, we don't know what score she would have given him. However, like, he's had an 877 every single week since, except for night 1. So I really hope that Whitney kind of locks in. I'm pretty sure some people have said he's probably going to get a contemporary next week. He'll do well with that. Whitney's great with contemporaries, and That's more of a freestyle. Like, obviously there's rules to contemporary, but it's much more of a freeing dance. So he'll do well with that. But I really want to see more Latin and ballroom content from him because he can do it. He is physically capable of doing it despite some stiffness. So come on, Robert. I want you to do well because I love you, okay? Let's move on. Next is Elaine and Alan, and I'm gonna be honest, I was so scared for her going into this week because she's a great dancer. I've really enjoyed her, but I didn't think she was getting the votes, and they keep giving her weird songs. I mean, this theme this week, I'll get into it a little bit, but yeah, this was a weird theme. It wasn't really from an iconic movie, it was more so based off the ride Space Mountain. And last week she had that horrible song. I mean, I thought she danced amazing, but it was a horrible song. But I was really rooting for her to shine this week, and oh, they did her dirty with that song. It was a weird song, but other than that, she danced so well, and I'm really glad that they acknowledged that it was such a fast song and that she did a great job with it. My only critique is that I didn't love the part where they broke hold. Other than that, like, she did such a good job. I'm really glad that she got her flowers tonight and that she was safe. So happy for her. One thing I want to point out, though, is that Carrie Ann glitched again, and low-key, like, almost called her old. I don't know if you noticed, but she was, like, as an mature woman, like, she kind of sounded like she was about to say old, and I lost it because you are not doing this, queen, like that. However, I'm so happy that she got such good feedback, and oh my gosh, they were hinting at this week. People are predicting they're going to do trios with a loved one, or maybe with somebody that they know. And I would, if that's true, I would love to see her do a trio with Lisa Ann Walter. Side note, I loved seeing Lisa Ann Walter with Cheryl Lee Ralph in the audience tonight. Those are my Abbott queens because I'm an Abbott Elementary fan, and those two are actually my favorite actresses and characters in that show. So yeah, I'm just so happy for Elaine. She deserved to stay, so I'm glad she did, especially because she was quote-unquote bottom 3 last week, so I was like, oh no, she's not getting the votes. But lock in, girl, lock in. And I think she got appropriate scores. Some people think she was overscored. I don't think she was overscored. I think Alex was underscored, but that's just me. Whitney and Mark are next. I'm gonna be honest, I have a little bit of a tough time with this couple too, and I'll tell you why. I know some of y'all hate them, but I'm a theater kid and a Mark Ballas stan, when it comes to choreography at least, so I was hyped for this dance. By the way, Whitney's kids are very cute. I don't love it when kids are pushed into the spotlight, but this didn't throw me too much because it was more so about like, yay, I'm having fun at Disneyland with my family. I did see that she was lip syncing, which was annoying. I don't like it when people lip sync. I find it distracting. Foxtrot is my favorite of the ballroom styles when it's done right. And this wasn't a traditional foxtrot. Foxtrot. Definitely a style blend. Wouldn't necessarily say it was my favorite of the night because it did feel, and people were pointing this out, it did kind of feel more like a jazz dance than a foxtrot. But I'm not entirely mad at the 9 in comparison of someone who got 8. Dylan, sorry. Sorry, Dylan. Sorry. I feel like I'm being too mean to him. I just wish Alex got one too, because I feel like hers was more of a proper Viennese waltz. And I have to stay consistent when it comes to pointing out gimmicks, which there was in this dance. And I have been having a problem with that this season, so I'm going to stay consistent. However, Whitney is a great dancer. I know some people have said they find her dancing a little bit awkward to watch. I think it's because she sometimes gets a little bit too into the performance and loses some precision. And by that, I mean she's not overperforming, but she's focusing so much on the performance that sometimes she seems to lose a little bit of technique and control. Not that she's performing too much, if that makes sense. So yeah, like, I wanted to love this dance so much because I really enjoyed the choreography. I enjoyed the dance. But I feel like it's just not my favorite of the night because it didn't really give Foxtrot to me. And no, I'm not coming for Mark's choreography because I don't want to get dragged by Latin royalty Shirley Ballas. And I also saw somebody say that this was more of an American smooth Foxtrot rather than a traditional one. I personally would have given her 9 to Alex. That's just my opinion. However, she still danced very well. Like, I enjoyed the dance. If there wasn't a style labeled on it, I would have been like, oh, period, that was great. But, you know, something about, like, after people started pointing that out, I'm assuming people who have experience, I, was like, ooh, maybe I need to be a little more critical with this one. But yeah, I enjoyed their dance. And Mark being partnered with her does not bother me at all, if anyone's wondering. Next, we have Jordan and Ezra. With Lauren gone, Jordan has become my person that I'm rooting for, like, to get into the finals. And she has improved so much over the past few weeks in comparison to night one. I love that she got to be Princess Tiana this week. She is stunning. Quick step, like the tango, makes me kind of made me nervous for her regarding the frame, but they made it work last week. I know quick step frame is a little bit different, so I was kind of like, but once again, Ezra's choreography hit, and they did a great job. They didn't look awkward to me despite the height difference, and she executed the choreography really well. My only thing is, it took a while for them to actually get into the content of the dance. That was my only issue. She was still one of my favorites of the night. Actually, I think my second favorite, so top 3, or top 2 even. And I'm rooting for her. She's my favorite now. I also have a few other favorites, which I can get into, but she is my favorite currently she's the one I want to root for. And last but not least, we have Jen and Yan. Jen is, she's just so bubbly and cute. I've said this every week, I think. But I like that she's just here to have fun and is working hard on improving. Seems like the Mormon wives were very child and family focused this week at Disney, so I saw that pattern. But I really enjoyed her dance. It was super cute and fun. I will say I thought there were a few too many acrobatics rather than actual jazz, and it even felt a little bit slow in some places, but when she did the jazz sections, she looked great. Not to boost up Carrie Ann's comments, because the acrobatics were very impressive despite being gimmicky and kind of not jazz in some places, but I agree. Not that the routine could have been a bit harder, but that there could have been more technical elements to it. So I think her score was appropriate with a mix of 7s and 8s, but jazz is just such a hard style to compare with the other ballroom and Latin dances because it's a completely different category. So I'm going to hold off on any comments regarding improvement. I do think it was her best dance. I will say I think her quick step was a little bit more impressive because that was actual technical ballroom content, while this had a little bit more freestyle elements to it. But I think this was her cleanest dance for sure. And I just thought it was really cute and fun. I genuinely liked it. I know some people were kind of like, she was overscored, but I thought she was good. Also, did y'all catch Alfonso shading Will Smith? Whew. So now we come to the elimination, and I have to say I sighed with relief, because I'm gonna be honest, if it was not Hilarion Gleb or Andy, I would have been upset. I'll give Andy one more week. I'll give him next week, and then he can go. He's very sweet. I'm genuinely happy that he's on the show, but you've been the weakest dancer for quite a while at this point. I think it's time for you to have one last night sweet moment and then bow out a little bit. Again, I was so nervous for Danielle, especially when I saw, she didn't have the best scores this week, so I was like, oh no, but she deserved to stay, and I'm so, so happy that she did. Disney night, for once, actually made me kind of happy, because I cheered when Elaine and Jordan were called safe, especially Elaine, because she was one that I was very worried about. As for Hilaria, I know she wasn't the worst dancer left. Objectively, dancing-wise, she could have stayed, but I just wasn't connecting to her journey, and apparently the voters weren't either. And, Gleb fans, trigger warning. I'm just not a huge fan of Gleb. I haven't been. I've addressed it in a couple other videos. I don't love him. He's a great dancer, but I just don't love him as a pro. So personally, this was the first elimination I was actually okay with, because I was upset about Britt and Baron kind of getting the short end of the stick. And then I was crashing out last week over Lauren and Brandon. Lauren, Baron, you have been avenged. As for my favorites of the night, it was Alex for sure, and then I would say Jordan, even though she had that weird start. But I think that those two were probably my favorites of the night. Honorable mentions to Elaine and Whitney, because even though I had issues with Whitney's dance, not too much on King Mark Ballas, but, I don't know. I want to give that dance my 10s, but, it did feel more like a jazz dance than a foxtrot. Again, I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments. 100%. I'm not trying to shade them because I genuinely think they're great and I've enjoyed them on the show so far, dancing wise. But yeah, Alex and Jordan were top 2, followed by Elaine and Whitney. But that's just me. Overall notes, scoring was off tonight. Dylan was way overscored in comparison. I thought both Scott and Danielle were better than him. I understand maybe those two made some mistakes while Dylan didn't really make a visible one, but I do think that they both did more content and performance. So it did kind of throw me off that he got 8s and they didn't. Actually, I did, again, like I said, I did find Alex to be a little bit underscored because if we're giving Dylan 8s, she should have had 9s. Scoring in general needs more variety. I get they're trying to balance out experience with the scores. Somebody made a suggestion that I really liked that might help with this. Let me know your thoughts. We have one judge, probably Derek, judge strictly on technique. And then we have another judge, maybe Carrie Ann, strictly judge on content. Like in terms of like, did they do the steps of the quick step? Were there any illegal lifts? Because, you know, she's the lift police, so we can give her that. And then have the third judge, Bruno, judge strictly on improvement, performance, and overall execution. Then the audience kind of counts as a bonus performance and journey-based vote. Like, whose journey are we enjoying the most? But weirdly enough, Carrie Ann actually was the most consistent tonight for me. Somebody pointed out that Bruno gave 8 out of 11 of these couples 8s. That just does not feel right for me. Like, I get that Alex's 8 is different than Dylan's 8, but that's not how the scoring, as far as I know, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, they're judging half scores, half votes. So if Dylan's getting more votes, I don't think he is actually, but this is just a hypothetical. If Dylan gets more votes than Alex and they score the same because you're judging her harder due to her experience, she's going home. Is that really fair? I don't think it is. And a prime example of that was last week with Lauren and Andy getting the same score and Andy clearly having more votes because he's still here. That's just my opinion. And not even my opinion, it was actually somebody else's suggestion, but I do feel like the scoring, like, we need a Len Goodman. We need somebody who has, forgive my language, but has the balls to actually, like, be like, nope, that was too gimmicky. Nope, you broke hold. Like, we need somebody to balance out these people-pleasing judges. Usually I enjoy Bruno, but I was kind of like, good sir, I need you to score more consistently tonight. Songs in general were very hit or miss tonight. Like, Robert's song was awful. I like that song, but it was not good for a cha-cha. It just made it feel very awkward. Like, part of it was the choreography too, but yeah, that's a prime example of me having a problem with the theme night kind of doing a celeb and the pro dirty in terms of choreography, because it was pretty hit or miss. And also Dylan's quick step, not the best song. Elaine, even though she was great, that song was weird. Like, I didn't love the songs. Some of them worked. Obviously, Alex's worked. Jordan's was cute. Like, there was stuff like that. But usually the songs that work are also dances that have been done multiple times. Like, there has been a Once Upon a Dream Maleficent version, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that has been, like, you know, they've done the Tarzan samba before, Trash in the Camp samba. Joey was not the first one to do that. I think Niall DeMarco was the one. Oh, the two champs, huh? That's funny. But that's what I'm trying to say when it's like, come on, y'all. Like, the themes are sometimes too restrictive when it comes to letting people do their full potential, which is annoying. But I get why they're doing it, because, you know, Disney owns ABC, so it's like, oh, but yeah. I saw that Kim Johnson is guest judging next week. I'm a little bit of a newer fan, so I haven't seen as much of her work on the show, but from what I've seen and heard, she was a super iconic and beloved pro, so I'm really looking forward to hearing her. I always love hearing Sharna's reviews, because she actually was a pro on the show, so she knows what she's talking about. And I love hearing from people who actually are experts in ballroom. So I'm really looking forward to having Kim Johnson guest judge next week. And I'll end this by saying now that we are mid-season, I think we can start being a little bit more critical and wondering who's going to be like, who are we now seeing projected towards the finals. I'm going to wait till next week to say this until we're really mid-season, because believe it or not, next week I think we're almost, if not actually halfway through. I forgot if there were 10 or 11 weeks, but we'll see. But yeah, we're not at the beginning of the season anymore, y'all. We can start getting a little bit more spicy when it comes to critiques and really like getting excited about who's gonna be going farther into the show. But yeah, that being said, what did you think of Disney Night? I personally actually didn't hate it this year. Last year I was like, ugh! But this year I enjoyed it a little bit more, and I ended up being happy with the elimination, which surprises me. But yeah, please feel free to comment. Let me know what you thought of this week. Let me know what your favorite dances were. All I ask is that if you comment, please be kind and constructively critical, because I'm just doing this for fun, y'all. So we will be back next week for, what is it, dedication night, most memorable year? Probably a very emotional night, so if I cry, I'll let you guys know. Bye!